kitchen table was where everything happened. Not just meals, though there were plenty of those, but a decade's worth of shared dinners, Sunday suppers, and hurried weeknight meals survived together, served family style in mismatched Pyrex bowls. The smaller ones, covered in faded primary colors or delicate pink patterns, held collard greens still glistening with pot liquor. The larger casserole dishes cradled macaroni and cheese, their once bright exteriors dulled by countless oven cycles, their edges browned and crisped to gold. No one thought about the bowls. They were just what you used, from oven to table to refrigerator and back again, reliable as sunrise. The women who used them never imagined that one day those same bowls, chipped, worn thin by use, carrying the ghosts of thousands of meals, would sit behind glass in a carefully curated collection, worth more than a week's wages from the very jobs they worked to fill them. In the living room, the record player stood like an altar. It was the center of Saturday mornings and late-night unwinding, spinning everything from Motown to gospel to jazz. Records were handled constantly, slid from sleeves softened by fingerprints, stacked in precarious piles beside the console, sometimes left on the turntable when company came and conversations stretched past midnight. Scratches were inevitable. So was the ritual of wiping each record with whatever was nearby. A dish towel, a sleeve, sometimes just the palm of a hand. They were made to be played, not preserved. Those albums, speaking of love, heartbreak, civil rights, and ordinary joy, were never investments. They were emotional currency. And yet today, a first pressing Coltrane or a regional Soul 45 that barely left the neighborhood can command prices that would have been unimaginable to the people who loved them into wear. The quilts told their own stories, sewn from old dresses, worn shirts, discounted fabric, or scraps passed along by neighbors. They were necessities as much as they were works of art. Grandmothers and aunts worked on them in the evenings, their skilled, practiced fingers turning cast-off cloth into warmth. These quilts covered children on winter nights, served as picnic blankets at family gatherings, and rested folded in linen closets, scented with mothballs and lavender sachets. Their edges frayed, their colors faded in the wash. They were used until they could no longer be used, then cut and reused again. The idea that a quilt born of such modest origins could one day be considered fine art, its patterns studied, auctioned for thousands of dollars, would have sounded like a joke. But the hands that made them understood something the market would come to learn much later. Beauty does not wait for permission, and neither does legacy. The kitchen held its own small universe of objects, valued only for what they could do. Jet black, smooth cast-iron skillets that fried chicken for church dinners and baked cornbread on Sunday mornings. Jewel-toned anchor. Hocking glassware, amber, green, pale blue, catching the afternoon light through the window above the sink. Softened stacks of ebony and jet magazines on the coffee table or piled beside the couch. Their covers creased from beauty shop visits and porch reading. A flower-painted tin bread box. A ceramic cookie jar shaped like a mother figure. Never questioned then. Now carrying a complicated reckoning of image, memory, and market value. None of it was considered valuable. All of it was. What no one understood, what could not yet be understood, was that the ordinary was the archive. That the things used daily, without ceremony, would one day be sought precisely because life had been lived through them. The irony cuts deep enough to draw blood. The same objects that helped families survive, that turned limited budgets into homes, are now objects many of those families cannot afford to reclaim. In antique shops and online marketplaces, they sit stripped of the smells, sounds and textures that once gave them meaning, described instead in the language of rarity and investment. The buyers are often well-intentioned. Sometimes they are even grandchildren, trying to recover what should never have left. But beneath the price tags is a simpler truth. The value was always there. It lived in the care taken to wash and dry those Pyrex bowls after a long day, in the decision to play a record one more time, even knowing it might scratch, in the hours spent stitching a quilt meant to outlast the hands that made it. The market eventually caught up to what those homes always knew: that black life, in all its dimensions, was worth preserving. That aesthetic choices made under constraint were still choices. That beauty, utility, and endurance were never separate categories. The objects remain. What we have now are fragments: a bowl, a record, a quilt. And what we must finally confront is this: true value was never about what something could be sold for.